Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello, folks. That was certainly a game. Andrew, how are we feeling?
I am surprised that everyone is here still. As I said on Blue Sky at the end of the game, there were like a couple minutes left. Everyone still watching at that point is an absolute psycho, and I love you for it.
Real
That's the
sicko.
that's the that's the people that we're building content for. The absolute sickos who are gonna watch their team lose 9-2.
Yeah,
Until the third period, it was not that bad, but now the whole game feels that bad.
exactly. It was like I was on Blue Sky and I was like, that was the worst, I think, one of the worst periods they played. Actually, I won't even say one of the worst, because I've seen bad periods from this team this year, but that truly, like, Andrew, do you not feel like they just kind of gave up?
It
And
did
it's
it did feel like
understandable.
that.
It's human, but
Yeah.
also the fans were booing them and they deserve to, because
Yes.
they deserve better.
Yeah, the fans absolutely deserve better. I can't imagine spending like $300 to see that game. I think that's
And
the kind of stuff that would burn a hole in my heart if I was
yeah,
like a season ticket holder,
yeah,
and th there's lots of things that went wrong tonight, and I think that in these kinds of games,
yeah,
it's easy to lose the fact that you learn the least about your team in these sorts of games, whether it's for or against. When you
yeah.
win 10-1, you're not learning any like when the score gets this lopsided in a game like hockey, it has a
It's
lot more
truly
to
nothing.
do with
Yeah,
bounces and like good fortune than it does, or like one team just has like extremely excellent execution in one game than it does in like long-term trends. Like I've seen some folks today being like, "Oh, the fans need to be like angrier to like force something to happen," and they've been playing pretty decently lately. This was just a stinker and things went sideways on them. But it sucked. It was not fun to watch.
yeah, yeah.
Remember when it was 1-0?
And I do remember that, and I remember thinking, "Oh yeah, this is one of those Jari games, this Tristan Jari game," where I was like, "Okay." I was like, "I know we have trouble shooting on the net, but Jari has trouble saving shots on the net." So I was like, this was a game that we really could have taken advantage. I know you said like this is a game where you can't really tell much about your team, but I think what we can say is this is really just an example of this shows us where the team is. You know what I mean? We've had like really good vibes. We had like really good like, after like Line came back, which like I'd like to talk a little bit about him too today. But and again, when I criticize anybody in this game, just keep in mind I could be criticizing everybody. But my point being, I think this is kind of a show in terms of how quickly things broke down. Like I feel like once
Yes.
you got to like goal 6, 7, 8, 9, by 6, 7, 8, 9 goals, that was like, okay, you can't really tell what this team is at this point. But like those first few that like just let them back in and those breakdowns and didn't help that Mike Matheson had a bad game the entire game instead of a lot of people this game had a bad period.
Yeah.
Um, I it's, if it gives you any idea where I am emotionally, Andrew, uh, this game had the worst period of its life, and I'm pretty sure the same is happening to me for this year at least. So that's where I'm at, and this is what this team did to me today. So
Just doubling down.
not a good one. Not a
Yeah.
good time.
You wanna feel upset mentally? Well, we're gonna hit you physically and mentally again, like just ram it down there. Yeah, it's gotta be a little bit extra tough to deal with it. That's completely aside, but I actually
Yeah.
read something recently that was talking about like how we talk about women when they're menstruating and like they're like more emotional, more sensitive, but like hormonally and
Mhm.
emotionally. how women behave when they're menstruating is closer to men's emotional and hormonal level all the time. So it's like that over emotional thing that's just how men are. It's just that we don't recognize anger as an emotion for some reason. I always
See,
find that
this
very interesting.
I hate when I'm like that because then I'm like, oh, I hate admitting that I'm feeling like this because everybody's like always like there's like the you don't want to feed into it. But listen, there's no winning as a woman. I would like to confess. So I did confess this on Blue Sky, so I will just confess it here. I'm sorry, this is the kind of game it's been. I'm just talking about where we're at. But I'd like to confess that I've been having a lot of eyebrow trouble. Andrew, I'm not sure if you've done makeup for camera. Um,
Uh,
but
to cover stuff, yeah.
yeah, yeah. But um I'm dealing with this dilemma where I'm like, what do I do with my eyebrows? Because if you saw me in real life right now, you'd be like, why are your eyebrows so strong? But in this light, it's completely fine. So that's the balance I'm working on. And I didn't wear lipstick today, guys. We are having a day.
Luckily for men, the standards are just lower, so we get to just do whatever we want. But yeah, I've had to have makeup done on TV and stuff, and I've had to do it a
Yeah,
couple of times on Game Over where I've had like crazy pimples or stuff, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to go on
yeah.
camera with that. Today, I probably could have covered up a little bit. I don't know if you can see, I've got red all over the side here
I see a
because
little bit. Yeah.
yeah, I was doing some sparring this afternoon. And I kind of got my butt kicked, so it was. I have sparring gloves, and the
Yeah.
inside of the gloves, the Velcro was like kept on scratching my face when I was blushing.
Oh.
So it
Well,
just
it
is
should have been a
so raw.
prophecy, apparently. You should have known
Yeah,
what was coming tonight.
we're all having a bad day today. Do you mind if we like start out just going through the chat a little bit because I feel like we had some really good comments.
No, Andrew, I have to tell you more about the state of my uterus. No. Talk to me about our chat, Andrew.
All right, so let's first of all we'll welcome Roger Bush Bouchard is here, Matthias XL, Denny, Trinka. There's Claire is here. Hi, Claire. Outrage is here. Said they risked their job for this. They're doing QA in a lab, and almost like risking your job for this game. Maybe not the best decision, but I respect it. MFM says that they missed 98% of the third, so they don't have the same image of this game as everyone else. Lucky. Bottle
It's
that.
very lucky. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Alexandre Christian had a bunch of really good comments, actually. He said, I know I'm probably the fool having this relationship with these knives on feet men, but I do feel like enduring this will make it sweeter when they win eventually. I agree. And they said, I
Yeah.
feel like in general, they're an optimistic fan. This stuff is supposed to be fun after all. But yeah, I don't know. I can spin that one way. I can spin that one anyway, other than it's one game. It says, every time we
Mhm.
discuss the core pieces moving forward, we optimistically ignore the top pick we're gonna get from this season.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good summary of it. Um, another another thing I just noticed, Andrew, I'm on the visitor side, you're on the guest side.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's all just like that part's just there to look like the old
I-
score clock. We can
I'm
we can
so
do
sorry,
whatever.
Andrew. I feel like you're trying to stir like stir spin.
Sir?
Uh,
Spin?
what do you call steer?
Steer? Yes.
Steer this in one direction. And I'm like, but my technical issues. No, I totally understand all those. Like, I feel like I'm glad that Outrage didn't have to see the mess that became, but it's hard. It's hard. I'm seeing Alexandra say here, um, that's part of why I always have a hard time fully getting behind the tank. I travel from Boston 2 to 3 games a year. I want them to win, even if it's not good for the tank. I get that, like, totally understand that. However, uh, nope, I can't spin it.
No,
Can't spin it. Totally
it's a
understand that.
tough one to spin. 9 goals against is a tough one. I don't blame Montembeau for this one.
No.
I was talking with Ian Bovair, frequent
Mhm.
guest, friend of the show, Locked On
Yes.
Canadiens co-host, and he was not super thrilled with the Montembeau poll, but I kind of understand it from Marty's perspective. I think
Mhm.
he saw the way that period was going, the
Yeah.
fact that they were not rallying at all, and he
Mhm.
just got Monty out of there. Get your head out of that game 10, 15 minutes early, get set for the Jets, because unfortunately it's the Jets next.
Yeah,
And we're gonna have a
it's not
crossover.
getting any easier. Yeah.
Yeah, we should mention, by the way, the next Game Over Montreal will be on Game Over Winnipeg. So please go to the Game Over Montreal channel. Oh, and by the way, if you're not subscribed, we've got 581 subscribers. We're almost at 600. So if you're watching now, first of all, like the stream, please. Second of all, please subscribe if you're not already. And if you know somebody who's a Habs fan who could use some more Canadians content, we got some great stuff right here on Game Over Montreal. But our next show will be on Game Over Winnipeg because it's a crossover. So we're going to be combined with them. So make sure you head on over to there and subscribe if you want to keep watching Winnipeg stuff. If you don't, that's okay too. Just make sure you head there for the next Game Over Montreal.
I mean, if you want a taste of what a winning team feels like, um, maybe. But also I feel as someone who watched them absolutely uh poop their pants versus the Habs last or sorry, the Avs last playoffs, I even feel bad being like, man, the sport is not, there's no guarantees here. But
It's
like
true, eh?
speaking of no guarantees, I think we all just kind of maybe got caught up in the line A return, the feel good vibes, which like totally understand. I'm also there. Um, but I'm not sure if you saw, but like before the game, he had a interview where on the on ice kind of warm up interviews where he was
Mhm.
like where they asked him like how are you feeling, and he was like physically not so good. I'm still getting back into the game. And I think that's one of those like today's the kind of game where you see that, where you see his speed not being where it needs to be. Um, Maybe he's processing 5 versus 5 isn't where it needs to be. And I feel like we talked about this a little bit, but I feel like they were the Pens, that was one of their strategies to really target him. I felt like they were really putting the Crosby line out against our second line. How did you feel?
No, I saw the same thing. And Laine specifically, whenever he had the puck, it's like the Penguins had clearly pre-scouted and
Mhm.
felt that he was a little bit slow, and they were attacking him very quickly.
Yeah,
And that line really got destroyed in the first period. And I don't know if it was any better or worse as the game went on, because frankly, everyone was not great, except for the Anderson line played well for a while, and I thought Nick and Cole were pretty good as well. And actually, Suzuki on that line, I think Suzuki did, or not, sorry, not Suzuki,
yeah,
Slavkovsky, when he was with Doc and Line, I thought was really really strong tonight, but
really.
he was kind of let down by his line mates a little bit. He also probably should have drawn an extra 3 penalties tonight. Not that the Habs would do anything with it, but it just there wasn't a single line that was on all game, and I don't think there was a single line where everyone was pulling in the same direction either. I mentioned on Twitter that Christian Dvorak, I think if his hands could do what his brain was asking them to, he'd be having a phenomenal season right now.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the decision making with Dvorak is exceptional. He's
Hmm.
putting himself in good places. He's making good decisions, but the execution just isn't there.
Yeah.
And when a player's doing when a player's in that mode, I think a lot of hockey media criticizes because they're like, "Oh, look at all the screw ups," and I get it. There's lots of bobbles and stuff,
'Cause they're
but to
visible. They're
me,
more visible than the good plays because
yeah,
we see those more. I think it's
right,
like that's kind of the part of why people don't necessarily give like across the league give Nick Suzuki his flowers because the things that he's good at aren't things that people necessarily like see. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Um,
100%.
so
And
I
I
feel like
think
it's a little
my
bit of that, but in the other direction. You know?
yes, and I think my philosophy with players like that when they're making smart decisions but the follow through isn't there
Yeah.
is like I'm not criticizing Christian Dvorak. To me, I'm like keep going.
Yeah.
Keep doing what you're doing. Keep your head down, or I guess keep your head up because it's hockey. Just keep doing the things that you're doing, making those same decisions, and you will be rewarded. I think we've seen that with Josh Anderson. We
Mm.
haven't yet seen it with Dvorak, but I hope that it works out for him at least for a stretch because he deserves it. I think he's doing good things.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just really funny to me where like two of my like both Anderson and him have had, I would say, breakaways for the last 3 games in a row. one for each of them. Um, and it just hasn't it's just to the point where I'm just like, listen, I'm not expecting a goal. I'm just expecting, hey, there's more time where they're not in our zone, which I think is sometimes you just have to take that. Are you seeing what I'm seeing in the chat, Andrew?
Yes, I am.
Oh, that's a looks real bad for Struble. I think
Yeah,
that's a
I
hard one.
it's I feel like these kinds of games, I never know how much to put on them. I
Yeah,
think Struble did have some moments tonight where he was definitely on the struggle bus, but he also had some good plays as well. I actually really liked Arbor Xhekaj tonight. He was
yeah.
really laying the physicality out there, but not over the line. I
Mhm.
kind of wish that he would have gone over the line on Achari because I'm still
Man,
mad
that
about the
guy.
last one. I'm still mad about that and Sullivan and
Sullivan's big brain move of putting him back out. Oh,
I still think he should have gotten like suspended for that.
yeah.
It was such a
If
garbage
anybody
behavior move.
doesn't remember, that was a goal where Achari hit Slav in the head. Thankfully Slav wasn't out for a long time, but he was, and this was earlier in the season, our first game versus the Penguins, but he was taken out of that game. And absolutely no punishment, nothing for Atari after that. But the thing that made it extra infuriating was afterwards, near the end of the game, when Jackeye was out there. Mike Sullivan, I don't think he's stupid, but what? That decision was not the smartest decision. I don't know if he was provoking because he put Achari back out there when Jackeye was out there. And I was like, I don't know what you're doing. Like, are you trying to what are you doing? Like I don't think he's dumb enough to think nothing would happen, but what else is the other explanation? I don't think he wants to have his players' ass kicked, which is what Jack I wanted to do.
I think it was mind games.
Man, worry about your own team.
I
Worry about your retirement home. Jesus Christ.
I know. Yeah, coaches are weird like that. Like sometimes they do weird petty stuff. I remember I forget the name of the guy now in Ottawa who called a timeout in like a 5-1 game with like 30 seconds left or something where he was winning just to like rub salt in the wound.
Buddy.
I sometimes it's funny, but I think when it's taking liberties with players physically,
Yeah.
then there's no time and place for it. But let's I mean it's hard to talk about this game honestly. There's just not a lot to
How
dig
about we
into.
talk more generally?
Sure. Do you want
And
to should we
yeah,
switch over to the next segment?
yes, yes. I'm gonna switch over to the next segment. While I do that, I kind of want to talk a little bit just about I don't know. I again completely making this game, making the third period of this game a non-factor. Even let's do that because I feel like the first two periods told you something. Um, Josh Anderson looks like a whole different player.
He does.
He
He
does
absolutely
not. He's
does.
not at all recognizable from the player he was last year. And honestly, he's not even the same player he was when he was at his like when what we thought we were getting. Um, like it what impresses me is I think he's evolved so much. I feel like he's like found new ways to play, which is just so nice to see because it's paying off for him.
Yeah, it is. And there was a shift. I think it was in the first period. Yeah, it was like around when the Canadians started to look good in this game for a very, very short period of time, where it was an Anderson move that kind of created a multi-shift momentum swing. That incredible forecheck that he did, I think it was on Evgeny Malkin actually, or maybe Chris Letang, and he just kept on pushing through two Penguins players and ended up creating a turnover down low in their zone, and he sent the puck straight up the middle to I think Dvorak. Didn't end up being a goal, but then Suzuki, Caulfield, and Newhook had another shift right after that that also was very, very strong. And again, didn't score, but got very close. And it's those ability of Josh Anderson to, the physical engagement has always been there, but it hasn't always been useful.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you're just like chasing down pucks on the forecheck, you might look useful. You're bringing energy,
Mhm.
but it's not necessarily translating into anything. And I found there's been a lot of that with Josh Anderson in Montreal for the last several years. But right now, he's attacking puck carriers all the time.
Mhm.
He's making smart plays with the puck. It's like little subtle things like a Josh Anderson drop pass where you're like, whoa, Josh Anderson was looking behind him.
Yeah.
Josh Anderson never looks behind him. He's only looking forward. It's little stuff like that. And instead of necessarily just doing his usual drive to the net and then run out of space, he's cutting out and circling around the net at the last second and trying to find teammates or looking over his shoulder and seeing if anybody's in open space that he can just send the puck into space and let them skate into it. There's so many more intelligent plays coming out of Josh Anderson in all areas of the game that he
Mhm.
100% does feel like a completely different player. And, we've talked about whether or not it's, how much of it is that he's on the third line now. The expectations
Yeah.
are different, probably a lot. But I just continually have to give him so much credit because it's got to be difficult mentally to get over how the last season went for him. And then
Mhm.
to come out and you're not going to get the same opportunities this year. You're probably not going to get power play time. You're on the penalty kill now. You're shifting more into a lower of the lineup role. And no complaints. He's just been excellent.
Mm, no. It feels like, if I recall correctly, like, yeah, I recall correctly. Sorry. Because Slav was moved onto the top line. I'd say the second half of last, and I feel like Andrew, no, that's you, Anderson, was put back on the, was put down the lineup, and he didn't, even with less minutes, like it wasn't like automatically just being given less minutes made him good. I feel like over the summer, over this year, man, Josh Anderson, the penalty killer, what a world, eh? And he's good at it. I
He is.
genuinely feel like we have three very good penalty killers on our penalty kill, and none of them are defensemen. To me, it's Armia, Evans, which great. That was a great sequence for that line. Armia, Evans, and Anderson, which is wow. That's fun. Aren't we
Who
having
would have
fun?
guessed? Yeah, I
That's
mean,
fun.
I feel like Suzuki is also an excellent penalty killer, but he just does so much other stuff that you don't really want to use him there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in the overall like poor season so far. There's a lot of good stuff to pick at with the
Yeah.
Canadians and look forward to, which is always good. And I know it's tough to do in a game like this where everyone kind of is upset and wants to yell about it. And I think completely justifiably, that was a very, very rough watch. But
Mhm.
at least some of the players are taking steps. And, I would say there was a lot of talk about David Savard being big on the penalty kill. And it sure seemed like they could have used him tonight. But also, I don't think that he's the be all end all there. Like, he's
Yeah,
very
I
good
don't
at
think
very
he's the
specific
engine of
things.
the, and yeah, I don't think
No.
he's like the brain trust of that.
Yeah.
He's very like, and it's super admirable. Like he's more than willing to put his body on the line. He'll block shots. Like he doesn't, he blocks shots like he's approximately like 10 years younger than he is in terms of like recovering, and like I'm sure like for a guy like that, it's a little harder than it is for like, I don't know. Like I'm sure it's just,
Zuli?
I was gonna bring him up, but I was like, is it a little too early? Um, as timing myself. Yeah, but like it's just, he's so important to that penalty kill. I think also mentally, I want to say he's good for just the baby defenseman. You saw a few times
Yeah.
that like whatever we think of him and whatever we think of his influence on playing next to, like, not that he's played next to Lane Hudson in a while, but like those like 2 3 games where he was, whatever we think of him, it's very clear the guys in the room respect him so much, and it's very clear that the young defensemen trust him to be a steadying force. And I wonder if, like if Mike Matheson was having a okay to good Mike Matheson game, which it feels like he only either has good or bad games. But like let's say Mike Matheson was having a good game. I don't think we would have felt the lack of David Savard as much, like just mentally with where the defensemen were at. like
Yeah.
with the maturity, if that makes sense. But because Matheson was also struggling, um, they just didn't have a steadying force. They didn't have like a guy to in again, I say mentally. When I say studying force, again, I'm talking about like the what's going on inside your head, kind of. We don't need to talk about how steady Mike Matheson is on a day-to-day basis defensively.
Yeah, Marco Larrabee, I think, is in the same line as you. He said every single person in the post game said that they really missed Savard in a game like this, not just on the ice, but to calm guys down. I think that was evident tonight.
Yeah,
Unfortunately, the third period got away from them
so fast.
quickly and did not get under control at any point. And we can talk about goaltending. I don't think goaltending was necessarily the issue tonight. I don't think it was very good either. We'll probably talk about Caden Primo a little bit, but Matheson, yeah, Denise says Matheson was struggling to stand. Yeah, that was the
I don't
weird thing about tonight.
know. That's
Matheson's
so
such an
weird.
incredible skater. Like, there has to have been an equipment issue for him.
I was thinking either equipment or I was like, there's some very specific injury that like none of us could even like we'd have to like look it up on like the internet to try to find a very specific injury that's like causing that. But no, I think it's just like maybe the ice on the bell in the Bell Center is too slippery. Don't know.
The ice too slippery.
The
Yeah, I mean
ice
it's
icing
icy
too
out in
bad.
Montreal right now. My oldest slipped on some black ice this morning on
Oh
the school
no.
drop off, but managed to catch himself. I don't know how. His
Oh
feet
yeah.
were like in the air, both of them. It's like a cartoon,
God.
like Scooby Doo, but he managed to do it. Yeah, it's. And Marco says Matheson's probably playing hurt. Yeah, he probably is. But the thing is, everybody's playing hurt, right? Like
Mhm.
that's also kind of the way that things work in the NHL. Is everybody kind of plays hurt and
Mhm.
nobody's healthy from the start of the first game. Um,
Wow.
I want to talk, if you don't mind, Kay, about some good news for Game Over Montreal and specifically the Game
Yes.
Over Network in general.
Yes.
They're not on there live today. It'll be live probably this weekend, but we brought in two sponsors this week. So I want to tell you a little bit about them because I'm really excited about it. I think this is a really cool thing that shows what we can do here at the Game Over Network because this isn't like Pepsi or like random large corporations. We're working with small local businesses in each market. That's who we want to approach. We want to do business with people who, are part of their community, who are lifting other people up just like we're trying to do. And in saying that, we're going to partner with two companies here in Montreal that are kind of sister companies. One is Inchu Bijou, which is a jewelry store here in Montreal, which, if you read Cult Montreal, was recently voted the top jewelry store in all of Montreal, top jeweler in all of Montreal, everybody's favorite. They're like a goth glam style jewelry, and they have everything from
Oh
like
yeah.
they do stickers and cool stuff that's kind of like witchy but like subtle, to like subtle silver jewelry, to like super high end bespoke stuff. They've
Mhm.
presented at like Milan Fashion Week, Paris Fashion Week over the last 2 years. So they've created jewelry for television shows. We're gonna take you there in a ad that we're gonna film ourselves to introduce you to their shop that's in Chateau Saint Ambroise in Saint Henry here in Montreal. The owner is amazing. It's a very like queer friendly place. They've built this community with this amazing witchy vibe in Montreal. They do markets every 2 to 3 months called Maleficarum Market or Marché Maleficarum, where they have like artists from all over who come and present stuff, and you can go in and shop like all sorts of stuff. They have different themes. Like they had one that was like vampires versus werewolves, where people were bringing in
True.
that kind of art, and like it's really cool. And attached to them is the Saint Motel or Le Saint Motel, and that is a selfie studio. Which, if you've never been to anything like that, it
They're
sounds
really
kind of
fun.
silly.
They're
They're
really fun.
super fun. So
Yeah.
it's basically like one area, and there's like 9 or 10 different decors that you can have different aesthetics and take different pictures. So my idea for that is we're going to go there as many people as we can get in Montreal in the new year, and we're just going to have fun, chat, and have somebody filming while we're there, take some pictures, and then that we're gonna build an ad out of that and show people how fun it is to that kind of stuff. These are relatively cheap things to do that are fun with friends. They kind of put on a little party for you when you rent out the studio. It's really cool, and I can't wait to show you guys what these businesses do and how cool they are. So that's going to be coming up soon on Game Over Montreal.
That's so exciting. I know we as like just a group are so excited. And isn't it so dope to work with like people who are just so amazing, right? Like
Yeah.
it sucks to have like we've all worked for like companies where we're associated with things that they were like, okay, fine. I feel it's fine. It's whatever. It's not even bad. It's just like it's fine. But like this is
Well,
stuff that's
even
so cool.
yeah, and even right now, like our website is through Shopify. We almost have no options on that because they have a monopoly essentially on being able to build what we need to build. Shopify, the people who run Shopify are bad people.
Yes,
Like
yes.
they're really bad
Yeah,
people. So like
yeah.
unfortunately, in order to run a business, you have to make some compromises. We're trying to make as few as we possibly can, but also be upfront that like, yeah, Shopify sucks.
Yeah.
And the person who owns Shopify, his wife runs True North, which is like a horrible far right conspiracy
Yep.
fake news organization, right? Like it's just a propaganda outlet for like neo-Nazi stuff.
Hmm.
So there's awful people involved
Yeah.
in a lot of stuff, and you just kind of gotta call it out when you can and avoid it as much as you can. And one of the ways that we're trying to work forward and do things right is work with people like Astrid at Inchu and Saint Motel, who is a phenomenal person who does so much for her community, and it's borne out with her personal success. People care about Inchu
Mhm.
and about Saint Motel and about Astrid and her amazing team of incredible designers. So I'm so excited to work with them.
That's lovely. That's lovely. I did wanna I know we're trying to move past some of the negative stuff, but I did want to bring up Brendan Gallagher's coat, which by the way, he's gonna be a dad. And isn't that so amazing? Like I look back and I'm like, wait, he's not like 22? What's up? But him and his wife, I want to say Emma, her name is, are expecting, so we just like to congratulate them. Super, super happy for them, and it feels really weird to think of Brendan Gallagher as a dad. Um, but he seems happy, so yeah. So yes, one of the quotes from him is, and I'm reading this off Prianta Emirates feed. It's an awful feeling. The fans are booing. They deserve to boo, and we're not providing an entertaining product. It's simple as that. We're disappointed in ourselves, but for us, it's learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen again. And then Marty says, he's like, he's more disappointed than angry. Anger is an emotion. Disappointment is a feeling. And I was like, those are two very like mature outlooks on that. And I think this shows us the importance of not to like preach about it, but I do think this shows us the importance of having more mature voices in the room.
Yeah,
I think this
it
is where
100%
you
does.
don't become Buffalo, you know?
Yes,
Not to
yes.
take a dig
And
at like a franchise already struggling. So, but yeah, it's the
I know they're
truth.
on a really rough patch. A really
Yeah.
rough patch. Trinka mentioned his Gallagher's quote about he has experience with children because he's had to deal with Cole. That's phenomenal. I love that. But oh, Frederick says, what about LaRouche? Last I checked, I could not find you guys. Yes, that is probably going to be delayed until the new year. I've just had too much on my plate and haven't been able to build the campaign. It's a lot of work, and it'll happen, I promise. But for now, if you want to throw us a couple bucks, you can go on the Patreon, which I am also in the process of rebuilding because I want to give you guys a better and more manageable uh sequence of awards and all that for supporting us. So there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of things we've had to deal with in short spaces here at the Game Over Network, but we're moving forward. LaRouche will happen. It'll probably be in January. Unfortunately, that's just how we have to go with it. The
Andrew's
the
very
whole
working
Marty
very
comment,
hard, guys. Andrew's
I'm
working very
trying
hard.
anyway. The Marty comments I love because we're talking about Brendan Gallagher becoming a father. I find a lot of the way that Marty approaches the game is very much in the form of like what's called gentle parenting, which
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
like the way that psychiatrists and psychologists think that you should
Yeah.
raise your kids now, right? It is about, you label the emotion, you feel the emotion, then you move past it because emotions aren't forever. It's about getting to the best possible end goal using the means that are best for each person, right? And as I've continued to go through the parenting journey, had to apply that to like other areas of life. Like I think
Yeah.
the way that media treats fans should also be in that vein, right? Somebody comes in and they're yelling and screaming and I hate this, but you don't need to yell and scream at them back. Sometimes it's okay to let people vent and be like,
Mhm.
why do you feel that way? Like let's
Yeah.
talk about it. Let's get down to it. And I think that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So when Marty does that, I'm like, yes, love it. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Um I think for all of the questions about Marty as a coach, I don't think you can question whether he is a personality fit. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think for the stage of the whatever we think about his whatever else we think he needs assistance, whatever. I think to have a guy like that on top who's not like falling into the usual like Tortorella kind of behavior or even just like any other NHL coach. Like I feel like this is something he has unique to him where I think a lot about that one quote about, and I can't remember the context. I think it had something to do with Patty Laine at the time being injured. And he was talking about like, we're not building a house, we're building a home. And like,
Hmm.
it sounds cheesy, but when you're inside that situation where you are like the players know what's happening, they're not stupid. They know the team is bad. So when you're in that situation where you are bad, to have someone who is willing to like put that emotional, like give you that emotional anchor, I think that's so important and I think that's so important for the culture. Again, like I used to be one of those people who was like super intangibles, culture, who cares? And then I thought about it. Like I thought about it as I would think about everything else in life. I would never in my day-to-day life if I was working in a team, or even if I was trying to like even a friendship group, I would never say, "Oh, this person who's like bringing in a certain amount of planning experience is more important than the person who has the experience of like managing, who has the experience of like it's just culture is so human. So of course it would apply to like a team. So I feel like that's like something I've had to learn really is these guys are human. Like they're affected by the same things we'd be affected by. And that includes culture. So yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think anybody who's worked or even gone to school, right? If the culture at a place is bad, you're probably having a bad time. And I
Hmm.
think that that's one of those things that as media, we talk about it a lot, but I find that there's an overestimation of the grasp that media has on a team culture. I've
Hmm.
I've watched media in this city talk about the Montreal Canadiens like in the playoffs. Oh, this is the tightest group I've ever seen. They have amazing culture, and then the next season, the moment something goes wrong, this team culture is terrible. They all
Yeah.
hate each other. They're all fighting, and not have the sorry, the wherewithal to see when things are going well, people get along better than when things are going poorly and it doesn't actually have anything to do with the team culture itself. Like there's going to be more friction when people are more pissed off and less when people are happy. It's just the way it goes. So I think seeing the organization work at the culture from top
Yeah.
down
Yeah.
instead of bottom up is
Hmm.
a very different approach and a very like a much more successful approach because if you're the leader of an organization, you do have to lead by example. Like we talk
Hmm.
about that with team captains for sure, but like as the general manager, as the team
Hmm.
president or VP, you've got to be walking the walk and talking the
Hmm.
talk. Like, and I don't think that was true for the Montreal Canadiens for a long time.
Yeah.
Seems to be true now at the very least.
Yeah.
We had was it relatively recently that Slavkovsky was it Slavkovsky that Kent Hughes had taken him aside?
Yes. Yes, that was Slav. And I think he
Yeah.
was the right guy to do that with. I don't think
Hmm.
I think that's the good thing is like I don't think it's a heavy-handed approach where like there's a few players where Kent Hughes could have done that, but instead he assessed the situation like a human being should and didn't let his ego get in the way of being like
Yep.
I have to make my voice heard no matter what. Um, he assessed who would be good for that and who wouldn't. I'm seeing Frederick in the chat say that some guys are checking out on the season. I don't like that. Are they getting used to losing? I think we need to remember that they had a really good patch before today's game.
Yeah,
Um,
they did win 3 of 4 before
they
this one,
did
right?
win. They did, and I understand. Like right now, it does feel like this team has never been good in our entire like experience of them. So I'm not like saying like I totally get that feeling, but also I don't. I think that's one of the really good things about this team. I'm not seeing passengers. I don't like to pass judgment on players, but I'm not seeing passengers. Even the guys who are struggling, I see them still working hard. I thought Kirby Duck was doing more good stuff today. How do you kind of feel about that assessment, Andrew, of like the passenger argument?
Yeah, I liked a few moments from Doc tonight too. Obviously nobody had a standout night, I don't think,
Yes.
except for
Yes.
like I guess if you cut off the third period entirely. But yeah, I think Marco's killing it in the chat actually. He said like talking about how this game went, and I agree. I don't think it was like necessarily quit. He said it was like an out of body paralysis
Self-regulation,
when
yeah.
things start going wrong, right? And I think that's what happened. You saw Suzuki in the post game talking about like I don't know what happened. Like I'm still trying to figure it out. It seemed to happen so quickly that they just were not able to regulate and adjust to it. And
Mm,
maybe there was a moment in there after the 4-2 goal where Marty should have called a timeout, but again, that's coming right out of the second intermission, right? So it's hard to say
mhm.
that would have helped, but it does seem like this team could maybe benefit from moments in games like this where it seems like it's getting out of the way. Just
Yeah.
call a timeout. Don't even strategize. Just
Mhm.
calm down, guys.
Yeah.
You can do
Yeah.
this. Think slower. Don't
Mhm.
panic. Like that's something, today I was mentioning I got my butt kicked a little bit in sparring, fighting
Yeah.
somebody that's far more experienced and far more skilled than I am, and also taller, which is always a difficult thing. And like my trainer was like, "You just got to slow down. Stop worrying. They're not out there to hurt you. It's sparring. It's not trying to like knock each other out. Like you're
Mhm.
trying to reach to hit because you think, oh, if I reach, then I can get them. But you just need to stay on balance." And I feel like a lot of Habs tonight were reaching. It
Mhm.
was instead of skating for pucks, you're reaching. And every time instead of skating, you're reaching, you're in trouble all
Mhm.
the time.
Mhm.
And on defense, especially tonight, there was a ton of reaching, and the Penguins moved the puck really well.
Yeah.
And Sidney Crosby ate them
Dunked
alive,
on us.
as he
Yeah.
so often does. What can you do?
Yeah. I like the way that Marco phrased that of self-regulation. Um, and I think like that's honestly comes back to the gentle parenting thing you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Is that's a big part of like when you're young, you don't necessarily have that. Um, and talking in terms of children, uh, that's one of the reasons why like physically hurting your child doesn't is bad, obviously, but also doesn't help because they don't like they can't help it. They can't help
Yeah.
it. And like they have to learn those skills. So I agree with that assessment that like they have to learn that skill. And like Trinka is saying that I don't think it's in them to quit, but there's a maturity they'll learn with losses and coming back from them. And yeah, I think that's just it's not like it's just experience. You have to go the only way out is through, I guess.
Yeah, 100%. Should we take some comment or some questions from the chat and start
Sure.
shifting towards
I do
closing this
have
out?
Yes, I do want to close this out, but I didn't give you a heads up for this. So
Okay.
maybe we can have a more in-depth conversation about this, but just really quickly. I know we're seeing the New York Rangers struggle, which haha, uh screw you guys. I hope Chris Kreider is really sad right now. Um so yeah, but Gordon was a part of that like group, kind of the building group. And I've been thinking about this. I know that there were some people um who were like, "Oh, this is a proven track record of failure. And first of all, I think it has a lot to do with the owner over there.
Yep.
Um, also has a lot to do with he's been out of that organization for a while, you guys. And second of all, I think that like one of the things that is really assuring to me is that I do think that Kent and him have a good balance. So like,
Yes.
what are your kind of like just brief thoughts on that? Because I did spring this on you.
Yeah, I think Gorton's a very smart dude. I think that he understands what it takes to build a team. I think he's done it quickly before in Boston, and a lot of the stuff that he did in New York has worked out pretty darn well, even the moves that probably weren't the best moves to make at the time. Like, I think that there was pressure in New York to turn that around quickly, and
Yeah.
they tried to pull out of the rebuild too quickly, and that's when you're like, there's the Panarin signing, right? And then you brought in Jacob Trouba, which obviously didn't really work out long term, even though he was the team captain. That situation is
Mm.
pretty messed up. And then I don't have much confidence in Chris Drury. I don't think he's done
Yes.
a lot for the Rangers since he took over. So I think they're a team that I wouldn't judge the work done there too harshly, because remember, they've won one Stanley Cup in 84 years, and for most of that time they've had more money than anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the Rangers just suck,
Yeah.
and they've had
Sucks to
stretches
suck.
where they're yeah, sucks to suck, where they're good enough to be competitive, but they're always a team that there's something very glaringly wrong, right? Like right
Mhm.
now, they have exceptional high-end skill
Yeah.
and one of the best goalies in the league, and you put those two things together, and yeah, you're gonna win some games. But they don't play very compelling hockey. Like at least like
Hmm.
they don't play hockey that will consistently win on its own merits.
Yeah.
They play hockey where you kind of have to get fortunate and outskill guys to win, and then rely on Shesterkin to shut the door. And that's what they were for most of Lundqvist's career as well. So
Mm-hmm.
they haven't really learned their lesson. They're still trying to do the same thing over and over again, which is like Michel Therrien Habs. Carey Price, save us. Pacioretty, please score all the goals,
Yeah.
and PK score some clutch ones. And
Yeah.
hopefully that wins games. And in the end, it doesn't, because you never build the depth. You never build a team focus, a strategy.
Mhm.
So the Rangers, yeah, sucks to suck. But
Sucks to
I think
suck.
I think Gorton is still. I have a lot of respect for him.
Yeah, I just kind of wanted to just I saw that conversation and I just had like a I was like time to spring this on Andrew because I need off the cuff. Uh, I'm seeing a comment by Trizak who asks, was Hudson removed from power play one because he refuses to shoot? Everyone knows he's passing now. I think that was just Marty. I noticed that Matheson was back on power play one near the end of the game. I think that was Marty just going. That was him
Yeah,
just I don't think it was a strategic move. I think he was just like, I think it will suck for Lane Hudson to get dunked on by Sidney Crosby again. So why doesn't Lane Hudson sit on the bench a little?
yeah. I think that was throwing crap at the wall, hoping something would stick after the power play was egregiously bad the rest of the game. There
Mhm.
was one power play. I forget which one it was. It might have been in the second period, where the Canadians made like 400 really crisp, good passes, and nobody shot.
Shot nothing. Yeah.
And that was kind of like the story of their power play tonight, when it was functioning. The first couple, it seemed like they couldn't even get in the zone against Pittsburgh. But yeah, I don't think that's a move that we'll see continue. I think Hudson is
Yeah.
well ensconced where he should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Man,
I
that
see
pairing,
Marco
eh?
asked a question
Yes.
here too. I'll throw it to you, Kay. It says,
Mhm.
how hyped do you think the team will be to show up well since next game is in Winnipeg, Liney's old stomping ground? What do you think?
They'll be I think they'll be hyped for this one. I think they kind of um Line is the heart of this team in terms of emotions right now in this moment. Not that they're relying on him, but with the recent events. And I think like he can be their inspirational story. And I think with the team again overall this young, they do need like here's the shiny thing. Go after it. Like here's this reward. I think Lightning was the reward for those last few games. And then for the next game in Winnipeg, maybe the reward can be happy lining, you know?
That would be nice. I mean, I thought
But
that they
it's
would be
Winnipeg, so I'm
excited.
not, yeah.
Yeah, I thought they'd be excited for this one because of how the last game against the Penguins went. I thought there was going to be a lot more push to like be a more like physically dominant team, and I saw
Mhm.
that from some guys, like Anderson. Struble had some good moments. Jack was throwing the body all game legally, but I didn't see the urgency from the team as a whole tonight to
Yeah.
like make this a statement game, and I kind of hoped that it would be after the BS in the last one, but I guess maybe you just can't get too caught up on that. And yeah, hopefully they bring it a little bit against Winnipeg because I would like to see some anger festering from how this game went. Not
Yes.
just like their performance, but letting it get that out of control. I would like to
Yeah.
see a team that's very all business next game and ready to take some numbers and names.
Andrew, who do you think will be starting that game?
I think Patrick Laine will be starting. Oh, do you mean in goal?
In goal?
Montebo. I don't think they pull. I
You
don't think
you
Marty
mean
pulls Montebo.
you think that they don't trust Primo? I'm
Not against the
sorry.
Jets.
I'm sorry. Get m get a backup. Get a real backup.
Mm,
You cannot it's I think the spiral also was not helped by the fact that this team does not they don't trust Primo. So, of course, they spiraled even more because they were like they had that in the back of their head. We're like and I understand why Marty pulled, obviously. I agree with you. I don't think it was a performance-based pull. I think it was a mercy pull and a savior energy pull. Um, but I just that that's gotta be I feel like a backup goalie isn't a big deal until it is. And I feel like we hit the point where it is now. And I just it's getting really hard to watch. I think I'm afraid Monty's playing too much. I'm afraid um they're asking too much of him and I don't know. I just don't like the idea of like not having an option. It genuinely feels like if you're trying to win the game, Primo is a non-option. So that's just something I wanted to say.
yeah, it was a weird one for him because coming in cold is always tough, and the
It's
Penguins
tough.
were moving that puck really well. But sometimes when Primo comes in, it reminds me of when you're playing like NHL games, like the EA Sports games, and somebody accidentally takes control of the goaltender and doesn't notice. And you're like, why is the goalie at the blue line? And he's all over the place. Like the puck goes on Primo, it goes towards him, and you're like, where's that puck gonna end up?
Mhm.
Nobody knows except for seemingly the opponent every single time. It's gonna be on their stick.
Yeah.
It's really frustrating. He's just so jittery.
Mhm.
I mean, I've been saying for a while, I don't think that he's a long-term fit. They're trying to
I
give
didn't
him some runway, but
I didn't think he was a long-term fit. I thought he might be a short-term fit. I'm not even seeing short-term fit anymore.
no,
That's like I
it's
never
rough.
saw I was not or not never, but in the recent time I haven't seen a future in Primo. But I thought maybe it can have we can keep the seat warm for a little bit. We don't need to like push, which also Dobesh is injured apparently, so that sucks. Not that I wanted them to call him up, but like just I'm talking in terms of like what the options of Laval are, which Laval
It's
seems to
not.
be spiraling a little bit, so that's fun too. Um, it's just a it was good stuff happening from the Habs, and earlier this season Laval was doing well, and the Habs weren't, and now it seems like the Habs took some good luck, and Laval went downhill. So maybe the next game for the Rocket will be really good because
You
this
never
one sucked.
know.
Yeah, yeah,
But I just want to see some more competitive hockey. I think that's the biggest thing for me is I don't want too many more of these games. I think we've had too many of these types of games in too small of a window to start this
yeah.
season. This one isn't as bad as like the one against Washington that kind of was like the wake up call that they needed to get significantly better defensively. But I would like to see a bit more awareness in their own zone, a
Mhm.
little bit more effort. Yeah, Trizek says, Jake Allen, baby, come back. Yeah, I kind of miss Jake Allen. I do.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't
Again,
think that
experience.
yeah, like I don't think they made a mistake moving on when they
Yeah.
did, but I liked Jake Allen, as a
Mhm.
person and as a goalie. So it
Mm.
does suck, and Primo's not filling that gap very well.
Yeah. I think, Andrew, we wanted to kind of give close up a little bit faster today than my usual. But one question I did want to just kind of touch on a little bit is because I'm seeing more Pizzetta talk. Um,
Yes.
it's Alexander asks that uh, do we ever see? Jeez, forgot how to read for a second. Do we ever see Pizzetta again without an injury, or RHB, who doesn't seem to be doing much special so far on the wall? Um, I think that they love Michael Pizzetta and they should let him go. Free fly bird, because I don't think he's getting a spot in this lineup. Heineman has done way too well for himself.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to bring Pizzetta in next game
Okay.
because
Who would you take out?
that's the thing. There isn't an easy one. Like
Hmm.
nobody should come out of the lineup really like among the forwards because you're not going to take out like Alex Newhook and put in Mike Pizzetta, right? Or like
Imagine.
you could, but like you're not going to take out Josh Anderson. He's been great. Like the bottom six has been okay. Emil
Yeah.
Heineman's been good. Yoel Armia just scored. You can't lose Armia or Evans on the PK. Anderson, you can't lose in the PK. Brendan
That's
Gallagher's been great.
yeah.
Like it would have to be a statement scratch, right? Or like
And I don't
you're not
see
gonna
who they
scratch.
could make that statement with.
Yeah, it's kind of tough. I feel like you might just go five defense. just
Yeah. I
just
was
be
gonna
able to
say maybe
address their
play
key
Pez at
forwards.
defense. Yeah.
Marco says they had Pizzetta doing interviews today. I do think he deserves to get back in it. Like it's not like
Yeah. I
Pizzetta's
feel
had
bad for the
bad.
guy. Yeah.
He hasn't been bad this year.
No.
It's just where does he deserve? Who does he deserve to play over? It's hard to make that judgment call. But again, it's one game. Like Heineman's not going to hurt from sitting one game either. It
No.
might not send the right message to do that right now.
'Cause he's earned that spot. I do think
He
he's earned that
has.
spot, especially with that goal. Like you're if you score 2 goals and one of them is off your fourth line who worked together, it wasn't even like that was a free passenger on the fourth line goal. They all worked together and they created that, and I don't think it sends the right message to take that guy out. Um,
Yeah.
but I also do feel bad for Pez. The first I saw of him in a long time was him interrupting an interview that Kane Gooley was doing and asking him a question using a water bottle as a mic. And I was like, nice to see you, Pez, but buddy, what's up?
Yeah. But if there was ever a game where it makes sense to put him in, it's probably against Winnipeg that plays a really rough game, right? And he might be
Mhm,
able to get through some of that like north-south hockey and create something. So I'd like to see them find a way to get him in there. You know,
mhm.
I don't really need to see anybody scratched. Like
I
it's
don't
a
think
weird situation with the Canadians where I feel like a game like this, kind of everybody played pretty poorly, especially in the third period, but nobody stood out as like the worst guy that is an
Mhm,
obvious person to come out. Like I think Line
mhm,
probably struggled the most of all the forwards,
mhm.
but
Makes
you're not
sense.
taking out Patrick Line against
No,
Winnipeg.
no,
So
yeah.
yeah.
It's a
All right.
that's a hard one. Yeah, yeah.
It is.
Just like
We'll
today
be back
was.
at it. Yeah,
Yes.
it's a tough game and many tough choices. I know Marco was saying Slav might benefit from watching up top for a few. I disagree. I
I
don't
think
think Slav
yeah,
is an issue.
yeah.
If
I
anything,
think
maybe a rest for an injury, but I don't think he deserves to be scratched at all.
yeah, I don't think so either. Um, but I understand the concern, but I think he's
Yeah.
been fine. Um, okay, so we're gonna sign off. Andrew, you're gonna be on for the next game against Winnipeg,
Yes.
correct? Uh,
Yes. On the Winnipeg channel, I'll mention
yes.
again, Ty is going to be on for Winnipeg, so we're going to be at it together.
Should be really exciting. Um, and I hope the game is better than this one. I hope we provided you a better post game than the actual game itself. I like to think so. And remember, if you haven't liked the video yet, we'd really appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed, we'd really appreciate that as well. And if you're listening later, whether it's on YouTube or on the podcast, we thank you very much. Thank you for taking your time to do that. And we are going to go maybe to bed. I don't know. We'll see. Bye.